one which in our view is one of the most significant discoveries that we've made in the process of education, in our view, okay? It's nowhere in the education literature that you can find any, in any material you can find, and yet for us serves as a base to explain why we have problems with a lot of things that we see, read, and hear, and so on in education. And that's simply the notion that there are different goals for instruction. And different goals mean that we behave different ways with kids as we work toward those different goals. Mainly the issue is, you see, when kids work on information acquisition, there are certain things learners have to do to acquire information. Good teaching allows that to happen. When the instructional goal is skill development, certain things that kids need, people developing that skill, have to go through to develop that skill. Good teaching makes it possible for kids to go through those things. When the goal is concept development, there are certain things we have to go through to develop concepts so that we can use them. Good teaching makes it possible for kids to go through those things, you see. That, in our view, you see, somehow, I don't know why we've never seen that before, but I guess many of us have felt it, and we've dealt with it in different ways. Sometimes we've characterized it as teaching style, sometimes we've characterized it as something else, And as I say, for us it becomes a notion that there are different goals for instruction, becomes a very critical notion in the observation of instruction, in planning of instruction, and in teaching. Very critical, which explains lots of things for us, okay? One notion. The other notion is that Dennis alluded to was that we're going to be talking about two issues in relation to these top three. We're going to be talking about the what should happen in good teaching. We call them critical lesson characteristics. And we're going to be looking at another dimension. The other dimension is called criteria. We're going to be sharing the critical lesson characteristics with you. The criteria are going to have to come from you. What basically we're all about, you see, in this issue, we've all heard the term of demystifying instruction. We define demystifying instruction as being able to communicate clearly with teachers what our notion of good instruction is, so that they know what's expected of them. And delightfully, teachers don't disagree at all. And teachers are very relieved to know what it is that we're looking for when someone is coming in the classroom, or what it is that we call good instruction, which is composed of lesson characteristics and your criteria, okay? Another notion that I want to share with you, just as kind of a backdrop, is that even good teachers can get better. I think in one of our preliminary meetings with you, we had discussed this point. The point being that I know when I was teaching for LA City, and I know many of you will have shared this experience, your supervisor, whether it's the principal, whoever comes in and observes you in the classroom, and after you've been there for a while and kind of soaked out what's important and what you feel good teaching is, and there is correspondence between what you feel is good teaching and what your administrator feels is good teaching. You begin to get the lesson evaluation feedback after your observation, your post-observation discussion. The point being that my comments, while Pete gets a lot of affect from me, God, this cat really thinks I'm good, you see, I am not doing one of my jobs. One of my jobs, a lot of our personal research that we've done in the center suggests that while Pete is an outstanding teacher, one of the things that we're finding is outstanding teachers don't know what it is they're doing that makes them outstanding. They have a tremendous intuitive sense, and a tremendous bag of tools that that intuition pulls from. Okay? And most of the time, they pull things out right, and it just works. It just flows, I think is the word, right? You begin to see evidence, too, and commented to the group yesterday that there for a while we had a new in-service wave, and the new in-service wave was that teachers were going to run all the in-service programs. And this was all over the county, you know, where the in-service program we were getting, our star teachers were getting Pete to do a session this time on so-and-so, this kind of teaching, and such to do a session this time on that kind of teaching, and so on, you know. It lasted a year. You know why? Pete got in there, and what he talked about was bulletin boards. Pete got in there, and what he talked about was how important it is to come to know the kids. And one way that Pete knows the kids, I don't know, you know, I'm just inventing Pete, so forgive me, but one of the ways Pete gets to know the kids is that he stands at the door when the kids come into his class, in his high school math class. And they walk into the class, and he greets the kids. Well, here's a sucker who really cares about the kids. Now, how you doing today? You feeling okay today? And, you know, blah, 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 and that kind of nice little dialogue. Nice stuff. He talks about how he has the kids bring in buttons for the button bulletin board, or pictures of, you know, of them riding motorcycles or flying their radio-controlled airplanes or whatever their hobbies are, or whatever, you know. Nice stuff. The question is, what do you do to get kids to learn that math stuff so that they come out as high as they are in the CAP scores? We don't hear that. We have someone in the class who passes out papers. It makes it easier. We hear this and so on and so forth. The point is that many good teachers are not aware of what it is they do in the process of instruction that makes them good. So that one of our responsibilities, one of our roles with good teachers is helping them become aware of what it is that makes them good. Somehow have the idea that observing is looking, you know, or listening, or whatever, that's what observing is. In fact, that's the way it's taught, having been a science consultant when I first came with the office and done a lot of work in science education. That's the way that many science programs teach observing, you know. And we've really missed something, okay? We demonstrate or illustrate the point. If I asked all of you to observe a television program, you know, that's on. I said, what I want you to do is observe this, and I want you to give us some feedback about the whole program itself. There's some of us who would look at this, probably a majority of us who would look at it and talk about, well, I like the storyline, or there were holes in the storyline, or the thing really didn't seem real that happened to the characters, and so on and so forth, okay? Ask Howard to observe that same program. He'll talk about the storyline too. But he'll also say, they didn't properly match the cameras. You know, I noticed that in several scenes the cameras were not properly matched, and we had a shift in color phase. The chroma was a little bit too high on that videotape, and they really should have caught that when they did the editing process. I noticed that some of the editing techniques that they used, you know, they used this editing technique here, and they used some lap dissolves over here, but on the other hand, some of these editing techniques over here were not that. The question is, why is it he was able to observe that, and many of us were not? Because he has certain concepts about television production that we don't have. The point being that observing is not observing. When in fact we are observing, we're laying our concepts on the world, and that's what produces the data. It's not looking and therefore you get. But it's thinking and laying the concepts we have that in turn produces the data. The point being that what we're talking about in this workshop are concepts about instruction that hopefully will make you more powerful in producing more specific kinds of data for teachers that can tend to reinforce good instruction